the same boundaries 40 years earlier. He was now a 60s icon. John Lennon acknowledged him as a personal hero by putting him on the front cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album. Drugs guru Timothy Leary went tripping in Crowley's footsteps.
It's a great trip.
And the Rolling Stones were drawn to him by the underground filmmaker Kenneth Anger.
The Stones found Kenneth Anger, who in turn introduced them to the world of Aleister Crowley, which at least for a time seemed, heaven sent's probably the wrong word, but certainly seemed to suit the direction they were heading, which was unquestionably infernal.
The Stones' flirtation with the dark side was brief, but since the 60s, the occult has seen an explosion in popularity. There are now thousands of occult websites on the internet, with many dedicated to the great beast.
For devotees of Crowley, it's possible to certainly see a lot of the things he predicted, prophesied, as having come to pass. Certainly Christianity's grip over what we can and can't say, what we can and can't think, what we can and can't do, is diminishing.
Today, Crowley's followers believe that he was a true prophet because he foresaw a society that has now embraced ideas of sexual and spiritual freedom. Others are not so sure.
I think today modern occultism sees a very watered-down version of Crowley. They gloss over some of the atrocious things that he did, and they just want to see him as a benign humanist, somebody who said, let's be free, let's go with the flow. And it is to deny an awful lot of evilness that happened in his practices. We should be open and honest about Aleister Crowley.
Crowley may have done some extreme things in his life, but was he truly evil? Does he really deserve his reputation as the wickedest man in the world?
Crowley never called himself the wickedest man in the world. From a fairly early age, Crowley wanted to see himself as the Great Beast 666, simply because he wanted to see himself as somebody who'd broken free absolutely completely from Plymouth Broken and from his mother. Crowley was a victim of his own idea of Christianity. Probably, if Crowley had been born into a modern environment where he didn't have to be a Christian or anything of the sort, I think that half of his force would have disappeared because he wouldn't have had anything to brace himself against, to fight against, to hate.
Aleister Crowley's life was spent affirming his freedom. It began in defiance of his family, Victorian morality, and the Christian church. But the desire to exert his own free will became an obsession and a license to live his life to outrageous extremes. Crowley's beliefs ultimately proved to be as damaging to himself as they were to others.
He didn't seem to understand that a philosophy of do exactly what you want doesn't really work for 99% of people. If you took away all laws, all restraints and all the rest of it, his society would suddenly turn into a pretty horrible mess.
Crowley's attempts to establish a new religion left him bankrupt, friendless, and physically wrecked. But he has left an extraordinary legacy of a life pushed to the absolute limit.
Crowley ultimately is as magnetic and exciting as he is repellent. There are aspects of his character which are very difficult to admire or even tolerate. He was childish, he was unpleasant to many of the people who most admired him. But above and beyond that, Crowley was and is mythic, and there are aspects of this myth which are very, very positive. I find it difficult not to stand in awe of his appetite for life, his vigour, his determination to challenge himself and the world around him. Crowley wasn't afraid of anything or anyone.
Bury me in a nameless grave. I came from God the world to save. I brought them wisdom from above, worship and liberty and love. They slew me, so be my grave without a name, that earth may swallow up my shame.
Masters of Darkness next Tuesday is on later at 11:05. There's a taster of that coming up in a moment.